guys, Louis Barbosa here. Some of you call me Captain Barbosa of the Red Pearl. I've got an interesting story to tell you. I fish for eBass and under Team Dragon. The story is really important if you own a Yamaha SHO or are contemplating buying a Yamaha SHO. Before I tell you the story, I want to categorically state that I'm not making this video in any way to slate Yamaha or their products. What I'm going to be telling you is the story of what has happened to myself. I'm going to relate facts to you, facts that are all backed up by an email trail by the people that I've been involved with at Yamaha and myself. So let's go back to the beginning. 2011, I decided to upgrade my Yamaha motor. I had a 200 HPDI on it. By the way, as a matter of interest, I've been a firm supporter of Yamaha for the last 25 years. I've owned 5 Yamaha motors in that time, including the SHO. Anyway, 2011, I buy a 4-stroke 250 Yamaha SHO from Boat Caravanning and Camping in Nigel, who were then Yamaha dealers. All good for the first couple of years, and I then went to the boat show at Northgate. You guys remember they used to hold those? Where I bumped into Richard Partridge from Brilliant Bass Boats in Polokwane, also a Yamaha dealer. At the show we were talking, and he turned to me and he said to me, you know what you should do is actually chip your motor, because it'll take it from a 250 to a 300 horsepower. My very first question to Richard was, how is that going to affect the longevity of my motor? He replied, no problem, the motor can handle it. My second question was obviously, what does it cost? And from memory it was in the region of about 18 grand. He told me all I needed to do was to haul my boat up to Polokwane and they would do the conversion. I decided to go ahead with it. So hooked up my boat during the week, drove up to Polokwane. They then took out the existing, I think it's called an ECU, and which showed that I had done 83 hours on the motor at that stage. They then fitted the chipped ECU into my motor. They did a minor repair also on my steering because we found that we had a hydraulic leak, and then late afternoon we went and we tested the motor on a local dam. To be honest, I didn't notice that much difference, but Richard said to me that the motor was still new, the motor was tight, and that I would find that as I ran the motor it would get better and better. He was 100% right, because the boat did start running a lot better. I've been complimented by some of you guys who have seen me running on the water. You guys have come and said, yes, that boat looks really good, it's really running nicely. Anyway, unfortunately, this last December at Arabi's, the motor went into limp mode. Fortunately, almost directly opposite the launch ramp, I was able to idle across, trailer the boat. It was making a almost like a slight slapping sound, if I can describe it as that. I hauled the boat back to Joburg. On the Monday morning, I got hold of a guy called Grant Hume from Technomech, who's a well-respected boat technician, works on all sorts of motors. Grant had a listen to the motor and he said, look, first thing we're going to do is we're going to take it to Linux and let's go do a diagnostic test on it, which is what he did. He took it to Linux, they did a diagnostic test on it, they said to him there's nothing wrong with the motor. So that puzzled him, so they brought the motor back. After listening again, he came up with a conclusion that he thought it was a tensioner on the belt. So we ordered a tensioner through Linux Yamaha. Obviously being Christmas, it was very slow, it was coming all the way from Japan, the part only arrived towards the end of January. Grant went ahead and actually fitted the tensioner and then decided to do a stress test on the motor. The motor failed again. He took it back to Linux. They did another diagnostic test on it. And they then said to him, you've got a low oil pressure problem. So he said to me, why are we getting a different reading from the last time I was here? When we did the first diagnostic test, they couldn't explain that to him. He hauled the boat through to his workshop and got a hold of a guy called Wayne. Unfortunately, I can't remember his surname, but he is the ex-workshop manager for Linux Yamaha. Grant asked him to come through and actually assess the motor. They ran a third diagnostic test on the motor. Oil pressure problem. That's when they decided to actually strip the motor. We then got hit with COVID, and for 2 months nothing happened. Okay. Come 1st of June, when we were able to actually operate again, I started to agitate, and I actually said to Grant, what's happening? He said, well, he's battling to get hold of anybody from Linux to be able to order spares. In my frustration, I actually shared my story with my fishing partner, a guy called Sean O'Reilly, who happens to know somebody at Yamaha on the motorcycle side. So he mentioned it to that guy. The next thing I get is a phone call from Richard Partridge from Brilliant Bass in Polokwane, wanting to know what is the problem with the motor. So I said to him, well, Richard, I actually don't know. I related to him exactly what I've just told you. So he suggested that the motor be crated and sent up to him so that he could do an inspection. Readily agreed. I thought, great, Yamaha coming on board. They crated the motor up to him. Some 2 weeks later, after I'd actually sent a couple of WhatsApps saying, well, what's happening, I get asked to attend a meeting at Yamaha World, to be attended by Richard Partridge and the General Manager Marine Yamaha South Africa, a guy called Melvin Victor. The meeting was held on the 7th of July. I get there, get shown into their boardroom, and Richard Partridge proceeds to put on the table bits and pieces of my motor, all very neatly wrapped in plastic. I thought to myself, this is not a good sign. Richard then proceeds to tell me that the motor has failed, and he's going to explain to me why. So I said, well, that's really what I'd really like to know. So he proceeds to tell me there are 3 different problems. Let's start with the first one. The main reason that the motor has failed is that the Yamaha SHO, when you first turn on the ignition, swirls and sucks in dirt that you have in your intake, in your air intake cowling. I found that a bit surprising, and let's just cover that one, because I said to them in later correspondence, I said to them, guys, I don't buy that, because my motor is 100% covered with a cover to actually protect it from dust. You know, he told me the whole long story about how we in South Africa drive along dirt roads to get to our dams, as opposed to in the States where they're all tar road, etc. I'd like to show you guys my cover. Guys, this is my cover. Okay, it fits very tight, further tightened by a cord that's tied around the center, velcro around the bottom to stop any dust getting in. Okay, it is so tight that to take it off I have to stand on the boat and haul it from the top. Okay, and I can get affidavits from anybody who has fished with me who will testify that this cover stays on until we get to the launch ramp. Only at the launch ramp does the cover come off. We then go and fish. When we come off the water, the first thing that happens is the cover goes back on. I'm pedantic about my stuff. If it's a dirt road, the whole boat gets its cover on. The motor definitely gets its cover on. So that story I don't know. That's the first point that was raised. You know, I haven't shared this with you, but after the initial 83 hours that it had done when the ECU was changed and the chip was put into my motor since then recorded that it's only done another 72 hours. So in total, the motor's done 155 hours, R250,000 motor, and it's failed. Okay? And Yamaha are telling me it's because it sucks dirt. Alright? The second thing that they raised was that our South African fuel is highly contaminated. Again, that doesn't wash with me, because I know a lot of you guys who actually have shows are using the same fuel as I'm using, and you haven't had a problem. Okay? The third thing that they raised was that I didn't have a service history with Yamaha after my warranty period. Let me explain something to you guys. For the last four odd years, maybe even longer, I have unfortunately only been able to fish once a month, which is on the eBass trail, okay, the money trail. Up until last year, I've always fished with a partner who had his own boat. So my boat gets used every second month. So what would happen is that if the boat was used 10 times in the year, if we happened to go and practice for the odd tournament, okay, that would be a lot. Okay, so what I have been doing is I've been having the boat serviced on an annual basis, oil change, filters, etc. by Grant Hume. Okay, I don't think it would make any difference whether I took it to a Yamaha dealer to have that service done. Okay, Grant actually comes to my house and services the motor here. It's one of the reasons that I use him. I don't have to schlep the boat all the way into Linex or any other dealer. Okay, and also I'm protective about my boat. I like to have my boat at my house. I don't like it sitting in somebody else's yard. So that was basically the third thing, okay, that they raised. They also said, you know, your boat is 9 years old. You know, there's no warranty for that period of time. And I was saying, well and good, but it's only done 155 hours. How does a R250,000 motor, after 55 hours, 155 hours, fail? Okay? I don't understand. I said to them, I want you guys to help me. Okay? They said, how? I said, if you've got a second-hand motor of similar hours, I will buy that. Okay? Give me a trade-in for what's left of mine. Okay? Alternatively, you fix my motor. Now they up front said to me, no, we suggest you buy a new motor. 260,000 Rand, guys. Like I was going to spend another 260,000 Rand on a product that has failed after 155 hours. I said, no, I want to try and get my motor fixed. Melvin Victor very kindly said to me, okay, let's find out what parts it needs. And obviously trying to get the parts from Japan is going to take a long time, but I have a unit that I can strip, and we can maybe use some of those parts, but we have to get the costings for the parts. I said, no problem, that'll be great. They then proceeded to do that. It took them 10 days, almost 2 weeks, and they came back to me with their proposal. Here was their proposal. I can buy a new motor for 260,000 Rand, or I can fix mine, okay, for 258,947 Rand. 1,503 Rand cheaper than the new motor. I said to them, guys, you obviously don't want to fix my motor. You're trying to manipulate me into buying a new motor. That's not going to happen. I also, at the meeting on the 7th, something that is very important that I forgot to mention, I asked Richard Partridge to his face, I said, are you sure that the chipping of this motor is not what has resulted in the motor failing? He categorically said to me, no, had nothing to do with it. was the dirt, the contamination, that I hadn't had it serviced by the Yamaha dealer, etc. So, there we were, standoff. I certainly am not going to buy another Yamaha motor. I'm going to be seeing you guys back on the water soon. The Red Pearl is going to be powered by something but not Yamaha. Okay? All I'm saying to you guys is, this is what happened to me. You need in your own mind to decide, was it the dirt being sucked in by the motor? Okay? Which obviously if it was, then any of you guys that own shows need to be really aware of that. Was the contamination in the fuel? Was the fact that I haven't had it serviced regularly by a Yamaha dealer? Was that the contributing factor to this motor failing? Bottom line, my opinion, all I can say is that after 25 years of loyalty to Yamaha, I don't believe that they've actually tried to even look after me. So, I look forward to seeing you guys on the water. As I said, won't be powered by Yamaha, be powered by something else. Thanks for the time.